1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on. Join me home. We'll have some fun.
Welcome to the Metal Matt Podcast, and it is day 2 of our Disney project. And today we will be covering the 1950s. And gee, everything in the 50s was swell. Alright, so before I get to what I need to do, I would just want to give a quick shout out to Chucky's Playground. It is the best place to be on the internet. I mean, what can I say? We talk about movies, TV, Chucky movies, just anything we want. And it's definitely the best place. It has the best people on there. So if you think that this thing is intriguing, go ahead and join us at Chucky's Playground. As always, I'll post the link in the description, and I'll see you on the playground. And I want to give yet another shout out to my friend Spanky and G, their podcast. It's, again, still tremendous, and they're going to be doing another one on Jack Frost, which I'm sure will be interesting. After all, a killer snowman is interesting. Anyone? All right. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that podcast. I know it's definitely going to be fun. As I've said before, you two have great charisma. You are the Brangelina of podcasts, let me tell you. And you two have great chemistry, and I cannot wait for the new podcast. And so now it's time to play Shoot the Shuffle. Well, I shuffle the first 10 songs on my iPod and see what comes up. And at number 1, it's Saxon with Wheels of Steel. Or actually, I should say Wheels of Steel by Saxon from Wheels of Steel. Really cool early 80s song, you know. It definitely has that kind of 70s metal feel. Number 2, A Rat Like Me by Motley Crue from Generation Swine. I think it's probably the weakest song on Generation Swine, but it's still a decent song. Number 3, How Deep Is Your Love by Bee Gees from Saturday Night Fever original movie soundtrack. A really cool disco ballad. Number 4, Night of the Living Dead by the Misfits from Walk Among Us. Misfits, really cool little punk band, very horror related. If you're looking for a band that kind of mixes horror and heavy metal or punk together, I definitely say check out the Misfits. Rob Zombie as well does some great horror and metal. Misfits and Rob Zombie, if you want horror and metal mixed together, you are definitely going to get it with those guys. Number 5, Psycho Holiday by Pantera from Cowboys from Hell. Really good, underrated song by Pantera. I think this was released as a single, but it's not one of the more popular or recognized songs, which is a shame because I think it's really good. And honestly, it just reminds me of something I would hear in the menu for like an old WCW game on Nintendo 64, you know. Number 6, On With the Show by Motley Crue from Too Fast for Love. Great, pretty good closing song. I believe it was the closing song from their debut album. Number 7, Chariots of Pumpkins by John Carpenter from Halloween 3, complete original motion picture score. The score to Halloween 3 is very good, and it's underrated. I think John Carpenter did as well as with Howard, and it's just amazing. Very creepy, and it gives the film its creepy vibe, and which I think is an underrated film. Number 8, Another One Rides the Bus by Weird Al Yankovic from Weird Al Yankovic. Very cool little parody of Queen, and I wish that they re-recorded it to make it sound more like the original, but this one is really cool as well. Number 9, Mind Your Manners by Pearl Jam from Lightning Bolt. One of their latest songs, it's alright. And number 10, Another Hard Day's Night by the Beatles from Help. This one is an interesting take on A Hard Day's Night, where it's more of an Indian remix of it, and it's really cool to listen to, and really cool to have another take on the Beatles' Hard Day Night. So Shoot the Shovel is over, and now it's time to get to the 50s Disney. And the first movie we're going to talk about is Cinderella. No, not the glam metal band from the 1980s, the 1950 Disney one. And this one is, I think this one's pretty decent. You know, it involves Cinderella. She has an evil stepmother and evil stepsisters. They make her work all day. And when the prince, his father wants him to get married, and so he holds a ball for every girl in the land. And the stepsisters and stepmother don't allow her to go. Then her fairy godmother comes and fixes her up, makes her look nice, and until like midnight, where the spell wears off, which is kind of stupid if you ask me, but whatever. And the prince falls in love with Cinderella, but since almost midnight, Cinderella has to go. She drops her shoe at all. So the prince finds her. The shoe, he tries the shoe on the other stepsisters, but it doesn't fit. But it does fit Cinderella, and so which really doesn't make sense, because why don't you just go after Cinderella? Why did he have to try it on every girl in the land? But whatever. And not a lot really happens in the movie. There's a couple of rats or mice or whatever they're called, and they're cute. Like, they get the point across. I think they're just for the kids, you know. But other than that, not a lot really goes on in the movie. I mean, it's cute for what it is, and but other than that, it's all right to me. Like, it doesn't really have very much the replay value that that other Disney movies have. And Cinderella isn't that interesting of a character anyway. I will say she's more interesting than Snow White, so that's at least something. But yeah, it's a decent movie. If you want to watch it, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you just want to say you've seen them all, I'd say see Cinderella. And so now we move on to a year later to Alice in Wonderland. And this is a really interesting movie. I definitely say it's one of my more favorite movies of Disney, because it's very bizarre and it's very dark. And it's really cool because the animation is great, and the backgrounds aren't very colorful at all. They're black, which I love, because it just gives kind of a creepy, eerie vibe to it. And Alice is an English girl. She follows the White Rabbit, who is late. He's late. He's very, very late. And he follows her down a rabbit hole. She falls, and just all kinds of stuff happens. And it's almost like a road trip movie, you know? Like, it's just like one character. She meets one character, she goes to the next, and so on and so forth. And she meets a lot of cool characters in that. She meets the Smoking Caterpillar, I think, and Mad Hatter and Mad Hare and White Rabbit, of course, and the Cheshire Cat. And there's just a lot of interesting characters in there that are clearly not right in the head. You know, they're all insane. And it's a really interesting movie. I mean, it's just so interesting, I think, because the animation is just dark. It's probably the darkest that Disney has ever gotten. To that point, I would say. And it's just really cool. The girl who voices Alice is great as well. She has a ton of charisma. And Cheshire Cat is also awesome as well. So Alice in Wonderland, I definitely recommend, because it's just really insane. And insane is how I like my movies every once in a while. And it's really cool to have some type of dark Disney film, you know. So I definitely say see it, because it's definitely worth checking out. And so we move on to Peter Pan. And Peter Pan would probably be my second favorite Disney movie. Yeah, Peter Pan it's a really cool film, because it's just great. It has a great villain, great hero. it's a lot better than the sequel that came out. Which actually, speaking of sequels, I might be doing Disney sequels in the future. We'll have to see about that. But anyway, Peter Pan is a really interesting story because it's based on a play by J.M. Barrie, called Peter Pan, the Boy That Wouldn't Grow Up, I think it's called. And actually, speaking of J.M. Barrie, there's a really interesting, cool film called Finding Neverland. And that was made around 2003, 2004, or something like that. And it stars Johnny Depp as J.M. Barrie. And I know at least one of my listeners has a thing for Johnny Depp. You know who you are. Spanky G. Cough. Yeah, anyway. And it's a really interesting film. It kind of shows just how J.M. Barrie was inspired to write Peter Pan, the Peter Pan story. And it's a really interesting film, really cool. And it also stars Kate Winslet and the kid who played Charlie in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake. So it's definitely worth seeing. But anyway, Peter Pan, my second favorite Disney film of all time. Just really great feeling. And it starts when Wendy, Peter, and John, 3 kids in the nursery. And Wendy often tells stories of Peter Pan to the kids. And one night, Peter Pan comes and takes them away to Neverland. And the funny thing about Neverland is there's a meme going around on the internet. It says, I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's like, the reason the kids all go to Neverland and they never grow up is because all of them are dead. And it's as like Vinny from Atlantis, the Lost Empire, go boom, childhood ruined. And yeah, it really does ruin your childhood when you think about that. And I can't wait to get to Atlantis, the Lost Empire on here. That's going to be really cool to talk about. But anyway, he takes them all to Neverland, and they come across this pirate named Captain Hook. And Peter and Captain Hook's fights are really good. They're really well done. And throughout the movie, Captain Hook is often chased by a crocodile who ate his hand. Peter fed Captain Hook's hand to him. And really the best parts of the movie is when Mr. Smee and Captain Hook are interacting, because it is such an odd couple, And Mr. Smee is like the perfect foil to Captain Hook, perfect comedic foil, and it's just really great. It's just really great and entertaining to watch. And eventually, Peter Pan, the final battle between Peter Pan and Captain Hook is just great. I used to watch it a ton. I used to watch the end of this a ton of times as a kid, and it's just really great. It's really entertaining. And it has some of the best slapstick animation it has ever had. So, yeah, Peter Pan is a great film. It's miles better than the second one, which I'll be getting to in the future. But, yeah, definitely go out of your way to check this out because it's really good. And also be sure to check out Finding Neverland. And so, now we move on to Lady and the Tramp. And I'm pretty sure I have this VHS lying around my house somewhere. But Lady the Tramp is really interesting. It's a really easygoing kind of movie. Just kind of laid back, kind of mellow. Nothing really that spectacular happens. As far as I know, as far as I remember, there's not really a villain in there. I think the closest thing to a villain there is like the Siamese cats and their owner. But other than that, there's not really a villain. It's really kind of easygoing. The plot centers around Lady, a Cocker Spaniel, I think is the breed, and comes across Tramp, a mutt, really for lack of a better word. And he just shows her how to just be like him, how to be easygoing. And it's just really good. I mean, if you just want something to kind of put on in the background, just to kind of kill some time, I'd definitely say check this movie out because it's really cool. And there's not a lot to say about it. Of course, everybody remembers the spaghetti eating scene and stuff like that. But other than that, it's really easygoing. I like the film. I think it's a good film. So if you just want to waste some time, this is a perfect little time waster. and it's really cool if you like dogs. So now we move on to the final Disney movie of the 1950s, and that's Sleeping Beauty. And I think this is an okay movie. It does have a lot of flaws, you know. The story revolves around Aurora, and Maleficent is the villain, and she doesn't get invited to the party. And because of that, she curses Aurora that on her 17th or 18th birthday, I think it's 18th, she'll prick her finger on a spindle and go into her deep sleep, and only true love's first kiss will be able to cure her or make her break out of the sleep. And Maleficent is like one of the best Disney villains of all time, if not the best. She's just pure evil. She enjoys being pure evil, and it's just great to watch. The other characters, on the other hand, not so much. The prince is boring as ever. Aurora is as boring as ever. The fairies aren't that great either. Other than Maleficent, no character in this is really that great. And speaking of Maleficent, there was a movie that just came out called Maleficent that I was really intrigued to see, and I'll check it out when it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray, because I think it does look a lot better than this one. And the artistic world is really good as well, and it honestly reminds me of an old Super Nintendo game called Secret of Mana. And it was an RPG that really reminded me of the Sleeping Beauty style of animation. It's just really beautiful, and it's just really artistic, you know, full of nature. And I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of nature, but I think it does it a lot better than Bambi, in my opinion. So overall, I think Sleeping Beauty is an alright film. Like, it has a lot of flaws. Most of the characters aren't that great, and it's kind of boring for the most part. But Maleficent really does make it all worthwhile. So I think this film is okay. So that's all for the 50s Disney, and on the next episode, tomorrow, we'll be doing both the 60s and 70s. And the reason I'm putting them both together is because they only had like 3 or 4 films in the 60s and 70s. So I'm just going to bunch them all together, and that makes 7 days. So tomorrow I'll be back with the 60s and 70s, and I'll see you then.